How is common welfare promoted in a Republican form of government? Are these methods successful today?
Common welfare is promoted in a Republican form of government, and these methods are successful today by these 3 court cases. The first example is in the New York Times Company versus United States case. In this case, the New York Times leaked embarrassing information about America's involvement with Vietnam that was leaked to them. America got mad by this and took them to court, but the New York Times stated that it was a violation of the First Amendment. Secondly, in the South Dakota versus Dole case, the Congress voted for South Dakota to have the same drinking age as everybody else. And last, in the Arizona versus United States case, the Supreme Court denied 3 out of their 4 provisions, making immigrants legal but still allowing law enforcement officers to check up on them if they get arrested or detained. And this shows that common welfare is promoted in a Republican form of government by all 3 cases ending in equality.
Yes. Good. Would you favor a direct democracy over a representative democracy?
I would favor a representative democracy over a direct democracy because there's been example in court cases where direct democracy would not function as well. For example, in the Gill versus Whitford case, things got out of hand very quickly. The Republicans had made it so they would win the voting no matter what happened. This caused people to become very upset and get out of hand. And this shows that larger groups of people tend not to do as well in a government, making direct democracy not as effective.
Beauty. Does an independent judiciary support or conflict with republicanism?
Independent judiciary both supports and conflicts with republicanism. For example, it conflicts with republicanism by the judicial review making sure the legislative and executive branch don't exceed the limits set by the Constitution. But it supports republicanism by making sure that the legislative and executive branches stay in check. They make sure that no other branches become too powerful.
Nice. Does a Republican form of government mean that all those eligible must vote in order for that government to be effective?
A Republican form of government does not need everyone to vote in order for the government to work, but having more voters would cause it to be more effective. For example, in the 2016 election titled by Donald Trump, there was less than 80,000 votes by 3 states combined, causing this election to be a little bit more ineffective. But in the 2020 election, there was an astronomical amount of votes, more than there was in the 2016 election, causing this election to be far more effective.
Yes. In a Republican form of government, should representatives vote their consciences or the will of those they represent? Should they ever compromise?
In a Republican form of government, representatives should vote both their consciences and the will of those they represent. If the people feel strongly about something, then the representatives should vote the will of their people. But if the representatives feel that the people are wrong or haven't heard the whole story, then they should vote their consciences. For example, as a politico, you do a little bit of both. You do what your people want when it means a lot to them, but you also do what you think would be the best depending on the circumstances.
Very good. What led the framers to establish a Republican form of government?
What led the framers to want to establish a Republican form of government was mainly the Intolerable Acts. The Intolerable Acts took away colonists' basic rights, like closing the Boston Harbor, and not allowing colonists to prosecute British soldiers, and even by allowing British soldiers to live in colonists' homes. The Intolerable Acts caused the founders and framers to write a list of grievances in the Declaration of Independence. Some of the colonists' complaints were the British taxing them without their consent, and the British not punishing their soldiers when they harmed the colonists, but this is only a few. The Third Amendment was also made to protect citizens' rights so they can enjoy their property without intrusion of the government.
Who does the federal government represent today? Does our current government follow the principles of our founders and framers?
I believe there are some things that our current government does that doesn't follow the principles of our founders and framers. Racism has been a problem in America for a very long time, so the government usually tends to favor white people over people of color. In the Cora Mother versus United States case, it was seen as one of the worst and most racist in history and was almost universally condemned. The NBC News has also written polls acknowledging racism in America today. And I feel that the founders and framers would agree with me on this because they intended to make fair laws that apply to all people.
Yes. Nailed it. Good job.
Thanks.